What up, everyone? Welcome to a little mini podcast type video. I guess that's kind of the format of this. I'm joined by Josh, aka Russolo Collective, aka or FKA Gershon's Immunological Orchestra, the founder of the worldwide phenomenon Speak and Spell.
Don't, you've almost short sold it by saying it's worldwide.
Yeah, kind of. But yeah, no, we're just gonna chat about creativity and sound and our processes and what we've got on the way, what you can expect in 2020, how it's game fucking over for all of you and stuff like that.
Yeah, TDE. Who the fuck is TDE, man? Like, speaking
Schoolboy Q, more like Schoolboy P. Fucking
no.
Fucking reason,
Man,
like, give me a reason to listen to your trumpet.
Oh, shit.
Alright, let me hold up. Let me chill before I get like bodyguards just swarming my house. Like, let me relax.
No, TDE have been taking L's for such a long time.
Nah, it's true, man.
We just released Obscura, which is like the best album of all time.
Right, they ain't done nothing like that in a while, man.
Fucking shout out Shy.
Shout out to Shy, bro. Amazing
Love
talent.
Her. Amazing. And if nobody's heard Obscura yet, like it truly is like what I imagined 2012 to start off as, you know, like for the label. It was sort of
2020.
What?
You said
yes.
You said 2012.
Did I say 2012?
You said 2012. Yeah.
Well, I mean.
Yeah, fuck Coney 2012. It's Shy 2020. So let's go. Yeah. No, I feel you. So, yeah.
2012. Yeah, it was truly how I imagined for us to, because I said, you know, I wanted 2012 to truly be the year where we all like give it our all and like the label truly like starts to kick off and we get in the more in the eyes of people, more in the ears of people, more importantly. And it genuinely has sort of been that for us. I mean, like Obscura like has gotten the most, I think it's like hit the most streams we've gotten on our project.
Wow, man.
And it's hit that within like a week.
Yeah,
you know,
that's amazing.
You know, like it's phenomenal. Like and so yeah, like it truly is a great way to start 2020, or even if it were 2012.
Yeah, either way, it would still be a good start.
It would also be a great start.
Yeah. Shit, if it was 2014, it would be a good start.
20 if it's 2022.
Mate, 100%, man. And like I reckon, like as the year goes on, we're all dropping releases. Like you said, giving it 100%. New faces might join the roster. New people might pop up.
Yeah, we already have like, you know, it's been sort of up and down because obviously you and Shy were like the first two people I thought of, because you're both talented, wonderful people, and I wanted you to both work. But Shy was the first two releases before I could even get you on.
Right,
Shy was like, oh, literally like a day before, she was like, oh, I've got an album. So
yeah, it was pretty convenient. It's like,
are you ready for that? And I was like, not really, but let's get it on there.
Yeah, no, Shy's work ethic is some crazy shit, man. I can't.
And for like the quality that comes out too is always. But like as I said, like Obscura truly is like the masterpiece. For anyone, I mean, like I know she said it's sort of like following on from Wool Gatherer's Pond because it was released a year after. Or 2 years after Wool Gatherer's Pond.
A year after.
20.
Yeah, a year after.
Yeah, it was last year. Yeah. Which was like her, I guess, a breakthrough. Would you say?
Kinda,
like a lot of people caught onto that.
Exactly. Yeah. That's when like I guess a lot of the people we talked to kind of started to catch on and like.
And that's where we sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like so Obscura perfectly follows from that, and you know, so well to again like the quality that she provides in the short amount of time, because I think she said to us that she really only does like 6 months. Like if something isn't finished in 6 months, she tends not to release it.
Is that right?
Or doesn't. Yeah, I think she said that in the chat,
Oh,
which
sure.
was I thought
Yeah,
I
that's
thought was
cool.
quite
Yeah, no,
interesting.
that's cool because I think that kind of ensures that everything you release is just like an accurate representation of like a certain phase or like a certain
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm.
time frame. And if it like drags on too long, it's like what that initial inspiration or emotion that kind of fueled you to make it from the
Yeah,
beginning kind of fades away after like say 6 months. Like that makes sense. So then
yeah.
you
You've
just go on
you
to a new thing at that point.
exactly. You've already like moved on, and
Mm-hmm.
at that point, you're kind of like, well, I don't want to release something that I don't like care about,
Exactly.
or don't or I'm feeling anymore.
Yeah, I feel
It's
that.
a weird thing in that way where I am constantly moving to different sounds and just ways of making, which I think I sort of showed through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Gershon's Meteorological Orchestra
Yeah.
being like ambient noise and very soundtracky, and then I moved on to Russolo Collective,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was like IDM,
Yeah.
and then with the mixtape, which was like ambient techno
Right. Yeah. No,
and like
it's tight seeing everyone evolve in this way. It's really cool.
yeah. So like I think I move genre quite quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, like I don't work on stuff for
Exactly.
for too long.
Yeah.
So I completely understand where she's coming from in that perspective. It's weird how like fast creativity works.
Yeah. 100%.
For so many people. Like I think that even your stuff, which isn't when you hear them so far apart,
Mm.
might not be too it might not be too evident of change.
Yeah.
But I think if you listen to them back to back, you'll see
Yes.
so many micro progressions.
I feel that way about my stuff as well.
Yeah,
I feel like
and
the
like
tone is just like there's just something more like with Tame Your Wild Garden. There's something more kind of just like contemplative about it, and
mm-hmm.
Origami because it has moments where it just kind of stops and lets you just like sit in the moment a bit. And
Yeah,
moments where like the synths will just kind of take over, and it just seems a bit more like kind of in its own head, I guess. And then Origami
yeah,
is just like never giving you a second to breathe, and it's just like
yeah, for
fast as
sure.
fuck. So they're just like,
Well,
even though it's all presented like in like I guess my kind of like vale-smith way, it's like
yeah,
you can it's with the same kind of beat making approach, but like
mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess like the tone of it is different in subtle ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a really really good sign that you have a way of making, an aesthetic, but you can, as I said, it's all about like micro progressions
Yeah. Yeah.
and just the smaller details of how you approach like a new project
Yeah.
or even
100%.
just a new song,
Yeah.
like
Like with
you know,
like with your releases and with Shy's releases, like each one has sort of its own thing going on. Like you were just saying about your how you've changed genres across your projects, but you still have that same. You can still like feel the
that
Josh spark in all of it.
it was
Yeah.
that they're all sort of made with a very a similar structure,
Mm.
I guess,
Yeah.
because there's just a certain way of making things that I've just like grew on.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think I was speaking to Connor
Mm-hmm.
in the Discord like not that long, to just about an hour ago or so, and
Okay.
he asked for like help on electronic music and making just ambient or even just like IDM or anything like that. And I just said like it really is a DIY job. Like you don't go
Yeah.
into it like with somebody's told you like, oh, you've got to do it 4/4 time to start off,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
then
Exactly.
you've got to have like a triplet here or something like that. It really is like you go in, you find a sound, you build on
Yeah.
it. Even if
You test the waters yourself. 100%.
yeah, even if you don't know a single thing about music theory, which I don't,
Mm-hmm.
um, I can create melodies, chord progressions,
Yeah.
just by experimenting,
Yeah.
just by like
yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
pressing keys,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah.
pressing keys, and if something good comes out, then
Yeah, yeah.
it does.
I'm the exact same. I don't know nothing about theory, and
Yeah,
I really like some of my little piano moments.
exactly. Well,
I think they sound sick.
you almost sound like you do. I think
Cheers.
I remember listening to like the brief draft you gave me like a while ago,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and I just that was the first time like I truly paid a lot of attention to your stuff.
Mm.
Um, and I just noticed how many melodies went into your tracks, and I was like, damn, how the fuck how does he
Yeah.
do that? Like he must know how to play the piano or something, because they're so visual, they're so there, like they're
Right.
so, I don't know how to explain it.
Well,
They're just
yeah,
all
yeah.
over
No,
the
I just kind
all,
of
all
like,
over the shop.
yeah, yeah. Every kind of I guess like this is one thing that I can't tell if it's like a blessing or a curse with me and my brain. But whenever I hear like an empty spot for a potential little melodic flourish or something, I
Yeah,
always want to fill it with something like every
yeah,
time, and that leads to a
mm,
lot of melodies just kind of bouncing off of each other. And I think
yeah,
the album that I'm going to be releasing this year has the most of that, like
mm-hmm,
of any release yet. It's just got it's the most just like free flowing and kind of constantly shifting one, and there's like
yeah,
a lot of like melodies kind of going back and forth, and they're all kind of I try to make it all kind of flow, and not none of it feels like there's not like one singular little melodic movement or one singular sound effect that like is a clear thing that just sticks out awkwardly. I want it all to be fluid, and
mm.
I'm just really picky with just filling in the gaps with things that just make sense. Yeah,
That it's an interesting thing, like
yeah,
space in music. Like when I still make art, but
yeah,
when I was very heavily into my sort of degree,
yeah.
but when I was making art, I thought a lot about space, and I've always loved space, like empty space.
Mm.
It just within a piece,
Mm.
like it
Yeah, yeah,
fills.
exactly.
You know, it's it's not only a very quick way to just have something fill a space, because space itself is a space.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
without getting too deep, like
yeah.
Inception or something, it like
J. Cole's like, yo, hold on. Okay.
but like, if you're making a square piece of
Yeah,
art,
yeah.
the square is the space, and then you're always going to have a space within that space. There
Mm-hmm.
isn't really anything, it's blank,
Mm-hmm.
but it still fills up
Mm-hmm.
a bit of the square. But like the same approach goes with music, and to be fair, it actually hasn't really felt that way for me in a very long time.
Right.
Only until the stuff that I've been making recently has a lot more space in it, because
Yeah.
the ambient techno and the IDM, I was very much packing so much in
Mm.
to because I was so worried that like there was going to be nothingness, and that it was very easy to pick out how I'd structured something, or
Mm.
how I'd um you know what synth I was using or anything.
Yeah.
I don't want people to know how I've made something. That's quite a fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. I think about this a lot.
yeah. So like I was so worried about leaving space, but now the stuff that I'm making now is very it's very jam packed, but it's
Mhm.
also, there are bits of space involved in there. There's bits of quietness.
Yeah.
There's nothing at all. And that I feel is quite an achievement when you reach that point where you feel comfortable leaving some space in
Yeah.
your work, because
Definitely. That's
you you really want to fill that space, but
exactly.
you
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you have to just realize that what comes after that space is even better
Yeah. It's even
than
more
than
important.
what you would have done when you filled it.
Mm. Yeah, no, I feel that 100%. It takes a lot for me to kind of realize that I don't need to fill every gap. Sometimes they're better off just left alone.
Yeah,
And because like
yeah,
because I think most every a musician probably faces this like or producer just like when you hear back your own music again and again and again, it's like you feel like it's always missing something. There's always something like that needs to be
hmm
added. Like what is
hmm
like it's not like full. Like it's not what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's so
that's it.
annoying. But then like someone else might hear it and they're not gonna think that. They're just gonna be enjoying it for what it is. And it's like it's just you because
Well,
you made it and you just wanted to
that's
yeah.
it's such a difficult
Mm-hmm.
thing to get yourself right. Like um you have to find a way of making something that you come back to, and then you're like,
Mm.
oh, well, how did I do that? Like
Yeah, a lot.
when
Yeah.
I made it, like how does that? When I've confused myself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's when I know.
Yeah.
That's when I know I've nailed it, and that's when I know that I've you know if I enjoy this track and I'm proud of it, I'm 100% good with it. That's
Mm.
when I know I've got something special.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
that's a really satisfying feeling, especially.
Yeah, when I stop caring about like,
Mm,
you know, if somebody else doesn't dig this, then that's fine. But
yeah,
or even if they, I just stop thinking about anyone else or
yeah,
what,
exactly.
even if they like it, I stop thinking about that and I think about how much I love it. And like the EP is the one. I think I explained this to Shy,
Mm,
that the first Russolo Collective EP,
mm,
You and the Bed, Me and the Sink,
mm-hmm.
is the only Russolo Collective release at the moment that I would consider strongly Russolo Collective.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, the the two EPs I dropped the other day, yesterday, was it yesterday? Anyway,
Yeah.
Friday, I think it was
Right.
Friday
Yeah. I think
afternoon.
it's Friday.
Um, uh, they're like experimental pieces, and the mixtape was also truly experimental piece. It was just a way of getting ideas down and out,
Yeah.
so that I can move on to what I'm onto next, because it moves, as we were saying earlier, it
Yeah.
moves very fast.
Yeah. Right.
Creativity is sort of,
Exactly. Like yeah.
you're moving on
Yeah.
constantly.
Like you'll be on like a train of thought or on like a rush of like something you want to
Yeah,
express that is way different to
yeah,
what you've been building already. And yeah.
yeah, and
That's
even
powerful.
though they are on name on paper Russolo Collective releases,
Yeah.
I still don't count them strongly as Russolo Collective. I know, I will know when a
Yeah.
release truly is a Russolo Collective title.
Yeah.
Um, as much as I love those two EPs and the mixtape,
Yeah.
they are again just experimental pieces
Yeah.
that I wanted to get out, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. It's
Yeah.
like
So
realizing your strengths essentially. Just kind of
yeah.
honing
So
yourself.
it was, yeah, exactly. Basically,
Mm.
it's it truly is just a, figuring out what what I truly consider strong titles to be.
Mm.
Those songs were just sort of left out for such a long time, and I didn't know what to do with them. And it's the same with the mixtape too. They are more like just compilations, which is why I called it a mixtape
Yeah.
and why I called the two EPs compilations, because
Yeah.
that's what they are. They're not a strong, they're not strong connected pieces like the
Exactly.
EP is,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
first EP. That was
Yeah. It's
that
very
was set,
compact. Like that's like
yeah,
a
set
vision.
out to
Yeah.
be an EP.
Gotcha. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And like now I'm setting out to make an album. That's the next, and nothing is gonna stop that now.
Beautiful, man.
Um,
Beautiful.
you know,
Shit.
and you probably feel the same way with your
Yes.
next release.
Yes.
Well, you have more. Yeah, I think you have more of an idea of releasing an album or making an album than I do at this point.
I suppose. Like, yeah.
And a couple under your belt now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's cool looking back and how and like kind of comparing how each release is in my head, like how I view it compared to how it was when it first dropped.
Yeah.
Like looking back on like Ultra Cascade, for example, like obviously
Oh
there's
yes.
so much shit I would change about that now, but like
Yeah.
but it's just so like tangible. I think how much like hope I had releasing it. Like if you
Yeah.
listen to it, it just sounds like a dude trying to make like really like beautiful melodic beats and stuff. It just sounds like really hopeful. Like
Yes.
yeah, and that's kind of like what the title is kind of saying. Like
All for a cast.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you're like putting
sort of,
all of your effort to something that you might
for
people
sure.
that might be a small thing to most
For
people, but to
sure.
you it's really special. That's kind of
For
what I
sure.
thought that
Yeah.
title represents. And
That's a lovely way of wrapping it up.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of what that album feels like. Just feels like just a very kind of like inspired and excited kid trying to make beats. And I'm still, obviously very young and all that, but like I think the music I've released since then is a lot more like confident. And
Yeah. And
that,
when you you released that, and then after, what was your like immediate thought after that? Was it like to sort of revel in what you've made, or was
yeah,
it sort of to go on and just be like, right, that was done, and
yeah, no, it
I'm
was.
super proud of it.
I did kind of like have a bit of a period to where I wasn't really making a whole lot of music. I only really picked up like I really got back into like album mode when it got to around, I want to say like August, which was like August or September, which was like 2-3 months after it came out. I was still making songs here and there. I put out the Eagle 70
Oh yeah,
thank you
yes,
EP.
yeah.
which was like the
Yeah.
only two songs that I made from the release of All for a Cascade to the September of that year that I thought were
Right.
release worthy. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna drop those. And
Yeah.
but yeah, like it was only until like September, October, like a little bit later on in the year, till I started like, okay, let's think about what the next album's gonna be. What is like the aesthetic? What's it gonna feel like? Like how is it gonna differ? And I was like, all right, I want it to be this next one. I want it to be a bit more like kind of ferocious and untamed. And I just started thinking of like, I just started channeling sort of just like some kind of feeling that All for a Cascade lacked. And I just thought like, let's see if I can pull that off. And yeah, so I did kind of let it simmer for a bit and just gauge reaction, just kind of like trying to understand like, you know, I guess like see what the feedback was, like what people were saying that were more of their strengths or this and that. Just kind of just trying to like, you know, gauge what the consensus is with myself
Yeah.
and then yeah, like I guess when it got to later on in the year, I started thinking about what the vision's going to be for the next one. But yeah, my album that I'm dropping later on this year, this is the first project to where I've not kind of questioned my ability to pull off what I'm trying to do, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like I feel
well,
like with Origami, with everything I've released so far, I've sort of had an idea and I've been like, shit, I don't know if I can do it. I'm gonna try though, and I'll just try my best to recreate it. And whenever it comes right, I feel like I just got lucky with a sample or something. I'm like, oh man, I feel like I don't really know. Like,
yeah, I feel that.
you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, yeah, I'll look back and be like, yo, that turned out really good, but like, man, I feel like I couldn't do that again.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. My God, I feel that so hard. Yeah.
And this album is the only one to where from the start I was like, I can fucking do this. I've done it this many times. It was the most confident and effortless record of mine yet. And that is basically how I wanted it to feel. Just feel like I basically just went in like, all right, I'm going to make this album just a constantly shifting string of just swag beats. That's just like, that's basically like what it's supposed to be. And I went into it with that mindset, and I felt completely comfortable saying that that's something I can do. And yeah, that's sort of the idea for it.
The story of vale-smith right there.
There you go.
It's pretty nice little. With this new stuff, you know, we don't want to talk about it too much,
right,
but
of course.
To leave some mystery. What? Because I find it's weird the way I do this, but I'm interested in how you do it. What is your listening library sort of like in the time where you're so focused on getting you know, this big idea out? What is this? What's your library looking like? Like, what are you listening to? Are you struggling to listen to other stuff, or is it sort of
I am. Yeah, I can't.
Very easy.
Yeah, I stay in my safe zones of just like inspirations and shit. And I can't really like take in like, or I can't like go back and listen to some like old albums I never got around to from the 80s and 90s and really like take it.
Yeah.
I have to be in a certain headspace, you know. Like I love, if I'm gonna listen to an album for the first time, I always do my best to treat it like it's the most important thing and really like take it in for what it is, 100%, regardless of what people have said about it or what its status is. Like I always treat any piece of art just as if it's like the most important thing right now.
Yeah.
And I can't do that if what the most important thing is to me is getting my sound right, you know? So I tend to listen to like artists that I just think like, how the fuck do you do this? This is like amazing. This is what pushes me to people like Rusty and Nicholas Jar and like motherfuckers that just have insane sound design that just Aphex Twin, you know. Sam Garrett, just artists that I just love like their mind and how they approach everything. It's something only they could do, you know. And that just makes me want to like come up with my own ideas and like do it in a way that only I could. It just really instills like the you know, the drive to create, I guess. Just artists like that.
Do you ever find yourself stealing? Because because like I'll listen to the one thing I remember was listening to a Ski Mask's first album, which I love. I possibly love more than Compro.
Yeah, that's a really good one actually. The first one's good,
and I like there was just so much on that record that I was like, I'm putting this in, putting this in my music right now. Like I'm gonna steal that time signature. I'm gonna steal the way those, you know, the way that kick drum sort of bounces around my headphones or anything like that. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I just thought, I steal so much from
I feel that.
artists,
Yeah,
and
no, hey, prime example actually off the top of my head, right? This is
yeah.
something that people really praise too, but I totally stole this, man.
Oh no.
In Thermal Haven,
Yes.
the lead harp melody is like a direct clone of the M83 soon my friend from Hurry Up We're
Oh
Dreaming.
my god.
It's
Well,
legit the same, bro. I legit heard it and was like, I'm gonna try and recreate that and just like build it into something cool.
I haven't heard that M83 song, but
Okay, yeah, it's from Hurry Up We're Dreaming. Let me make sure I got the name. I think it's called Soon My Friend.
Okay.
And yeah, legit, it has like such. It's not like 100% the same, but it's like
Yeah.
very obviously like from that.
Well, I think that's the best part, really, is like you
Yeah.
can never truly 100% copy,
Mm.
something that's like a safety net. Really, it's like
Yeah, I
no
suppose.
matter, I could fall from this, but it's
Yeah,
not going to be very far.
exactly. Yeah, like I remember
But
hearing
it's
that song. It's at the very beginning of the song, and then it just kind of turns into a little guitar thing. It turns into something totally
okay.
different. And I just thought, bro,
Yeah.
that harp at the beginning, that shit at the very beginning of the song is so fucking nice. I want to
Yeah.
take that. I wish the song would like keep that going for the whole thing. Like, no, let me
Yeah.
try and do like that myself. So I literally just
Yeah.
recreated that melody using just like a stock harp on Logic Pro and just built my own version of it basically. And so yeah, that was that.
Yeah. There's a little fun thing for people
Yeah, right.
to go to go and test out.
Yeah, because I remember, what was it? I remember David Rowe particularly was like, this song is like the best track on the album, bro. That harp melody, oh, I was like, yeah, dude, I totally did.
Yeah, that was so sick.
It's from M83, man. Yeah.
It's you know what, it's I always think it's a really important part of art is to steal and
Yeah,
obviously within reason, but like
yeah.
it truly is anyone who makes, there's inspiration, but also like, and inspiration isn't stealing, but
Yeah.
if you love a piece of work so much, you're always going to take a bit of that away with you.
Yeah.
And if you're taking it and using it for your own work and you're making it into something new, I think it's always like welcome, honestly.
Definitely, man. Another example, actually, Jacket Weather by Sam Gellatry.
Yeah.
Delicacy, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you listen to those songs, it's so clear. Like, it's like those two
that
songs.
Your stuff is.
Yeah. Literally,
yeah.
the main melody of Jacket Weather is just so dope to me. I just thought, like, it's just so catchy. So I just made like the main little bell melody of Delicacy was just like sort of a simplified version of that. And I just thought, and like, obviously the song goes into a totally different direction altogether than Jacket Weather, but like it's just that main lead melody. I just love how Jacket Weather carries it throughout the entire song and just builds a whole bunch of crazy little beat switches switch ups around it. I just thought that was tight. I just thought I would take a melody similar to that and then just switch it up in my way. But yeah, that song was definitely inspired by that. So I agree though. I think it's cool to sort of like find a little thing you love in a track and just like, man, that's so great. I wanna like try and do my own version, And
definitely.
run along with it,
most of my music ends up being that. Basically, it's just taking what I love about a certain album or artist, an artist vision or something, and just making it my own and seeing where I can take that. I find I with the sort of list my sort of library, what I'm listening to when I'm making a project differs. Like I tend to just stick with my usual listening plan, which is I'll listen to just new music that's coming, because I work in a record shop anyway. Like I'm always listening to new music.
For sure.
It's sort of it's what I must do, but I do find myself getting listeners fatigue anyway. So especially at the moment that with the new stuff I'm making, which I genuinely think is my best stuff, and it's happening so fast, and I'm really happy with that. And I think this is a definitive Russolo Collective record that I'm making. What the stuff I'm listening to now is very much like I'm definitely picking and choosing what I know will keep me going. As much as I do want to go and listen to the Keeley Forsyth record, which I love, is my favorite album of the year. I'm like on the way home, I'm just like, right, I'm gonna listen to the new Against All Logic album or I'll just listen to a Nicholas Jar album, or I'll listen to something like the S Gallery MoMA album, or Ski Mask, or whatever. Something I know
just
that
something
was
your comfort zone, essentially. Just like...
I know, even if it's new, but I know that it's just generally tech housey or outside a house or anything like that. That the stuff I'm making now, you know, like anything like
stuff
that
you know that the second you hear it, it's gonna get you like excited to do your thing, basically.
What ends up happening is is that I'll listen to that for like 15 minutes of my journey home, which my journey home's like 45 minutes, including train journey.
Sure.
So I'll listen to it for 15 minutes, and then I'm like, no, I'm gonna switch on GarageBand, and I'll listen to my own tracks.
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, I do the exact fucking same, bro.
Yeah, like you'll be like you're like, I'm enjoying this person's music, but I'm making this track right now, and I'm loving it. Like, I'm so inspired by it, and I just want to I want to keep listening to it. And even while you're even while you're walking and you can't work on it, you're like, in your head, you're like, right, I'm going to fix that as soon as I get the chance. Sometimes I even stop on my walk, and I'll be like, I'll open up my phone and I'll move something around, you know?
Yeah.
It's that, like, it's that in the moment and spontaneous with my work. It's like, my work, I barely ever sit down and work for like an hour, you know?
Gotcha.
I will wake up in the morning. I might work on it before I leave the house, but probably not, because I don't have time. But I'll go and get a coffee before work, and in the coffee shop, it's all I'll do. It's just work on a song.
Bro, honestly, unconventional locations are like fucking essential for like...
Definitely, because you know you don't have that much time. You have to make it count.
Bro, I was legit, for my new album, I was legit just sitting outside trees with my laptop, just like outside a pub, just like, or something, just by a bush. I would be at the break room at work, just like places that I wouldn't typically imagine myself to be when I'm making a song. Because like if you're just in your room, like it never works. I don't know what it is. I have to be like just somewhere different. So I'll just be like sat outside up against a wall or just some shit. I'll bring my laptop and there it is. Like that's just something that I would always do. And
I think it is essential in the making. Like,
sure,
it's been a part of, well, actually, Gershon's Immunological Orchestra. Can't even say it. I've struggled. That is a great choice, a great name, but like I've struggled with it.
It's a mouthful, but hey, it looks and sounds tight, so you're all good.
Yeah, the two projects I dropped under that name were entirely made in my bedroom. And they definitely just sort of reflected the mood and just the general feeling of how I was at the time, which wasn't mentally fantastic. And so I just sat in my room and made them. But anything past that, anything with a beat, which I started using around this time last year, is mostly done outside of the house. I did make a project. My first ever project with beats was, it's funny, I sent it to like maybe 2 people, and I probably sent you a track or 2, but it was basically like this just very Boards of Canada-ish, but like not even B-sides Board of Canada. they were just so
C-sides.
They weren't like whack, but they weren't very good, and they would. But it was the first and I like thought, and it was when I thought of the idea of Speak and Spell. It was like, right, maybe I have to step up my game, and maybe starting a label would be fun, but also push me into more interesting times with my music. And but anything past that Lost album, which I still go back to every now and again, just to be like, that's how far I've come.
I do the same thing.
Anything past that is made pretty much on a journey to work and a journey home. yeah, very rarely do I sit down and have much time to in my house to make. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
yeah, no, 100%. I just think I feel like for me, it's when I'm in my house, when I'm in my room trying to make a song.
mm,
I always feel like there's a bit of a pressure to do well because I'm in where I should be. I guess if that makes
right,
sense. Like
right.
I'll have like, oh, this is like I'm in my room. I'm in my own room, my bedroom. Like I've got all the time in
Hmm.
the world. Like
No excuses.
yeah, no,
No
exactly, no
excuses.
excuses not to just be killing this. I got like free time. I'm here. Like let's go. And I just that pressure then stops me from being like every time I'll try and make a song, it will just turn out
Yeah,
shit. I'm like man.
yeah,
And then I'll just go somewhere else. I'll just go into like the woods or just like go to a coffee shop, and I'll just
yeah,
try it there, and like it will just flow perfectly, just naturally. It's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a really really interesting. The one of the questions that always runs through my mind um, with making the type of music that we make
Yeah.
is, I mean, I know what my answer is, but do you ever, when you're making music, what do you count yourself as? Do you think of yourself as a musician, a producer, or do you call yourself an artist? Because the artist word is a giant word
Right.
that
Okay.
I think a lot of people are like afraid to call themselves because maybe they think they're just like a parody of themselves, or maybe it's too cringy, or or whatever like that. But
Yeah.
when I call myself an artist, I feel empowered. I feel I have identity. It's my identity, and my music is art, and my drawings or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
collage work is my art. Like, how do you feel?
Yeah,
How do you?
I would say I call myself all of those things
Yes.
upon reflection. But
Yeah.
in the moment as I'm making a song, I try to treat it as just the most casual process possible, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
I'll just like, oh, let me find a sound. Cool, let me drag it in.
Yeah.
Let me see what I can do with it. Let me just reverse it. Oh fuck it, let me add an effect on it. Let me throw a drum on it.
Yeah.
I'm just like
And
treating
you.
it casually. I'm not really thinking of myself as anything, as opposed to just like a guy
Yeah.
having fun on a laptop. And suddenly, upon reflection, I'll kind of consider myself to be those things. Like in the moment, I'm just kind of just freely experimenting, I suppose.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's the best way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
Is uh, to just in the moment, you're doing this really really strange thing. Like
Yeah.
you're getting your laptop out and you're spending time dragging sounds in and putting them together, and often it feels alien almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Sometimes it doesn't feel natural because it's
Exactly,
just
man.
so weird that this is what I'm doing, and I'm not
Yeah.
being paid. I'm not being paid for it or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like a very in the moment thing, and
Yeah.
but I don't think about that in the moment. But when I step back, I'm like, shit, what? And even like I'll forget like when I made that idea like that. There's so many like progressions on this new project I'm making that
Mm.
I'll go back and I'm like, I don't even remember like how that came about. Like
Yeah. Exactly,
it just
man.
sort of
Yeah, that's
like the
true as fuck.
the song that started it all features vocals from Will Cacti, who I did the
Yeah.
tapes with,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I pulled I pulled an old vocal set
Yeah.
from the tapes project that never made it on there,
Okay.
and that's basically where I started the project from.
Sure.
And this was before the EPs came out
Mm-hmm.
last week. It's a completely different song now, but um, when I was just freestyling uh, chord progressions or like melodies, I did this one melody, and I do remember doing it, but I don't remember truly knowing what buttons to press,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like I just don't know how that got from my head to my fingers.
Exactly.
It just happened.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like my brain was like on not on sleep mode, but it was sort of it just I
On
don't know, it just knew.
autopilot. Autopilot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just knew what to do, and like that melody was perfect.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was just perfect.
Those moments are mad surreal, honestly.
Yeah,
Like
like
there's so many songs like that are out now, and I look back on, I'm trying to imagine the process, and like it just you, 1 second you're just like, fuck, where the hell does the song go? And then like 10
yes,
minutes later, it's like, yo, we're like 3 minutes deep into the song.
yeah.
It's like, oh shit, it just happens.
No, you know what? No matter how much I re-listen to the tracks, even the ones I'm making now, like
Yeah,
I still can't predict where they go.
yeah, you never can, man. Yeah,
It's just because you're so focused on like doing other ideas.
exactly.
You go back and you're just like, what happens next? Oh, right, that happens next. I like that bit, or oh no, I don't like that bit. Let's
Yeah,
swap
no,
it out. Or
honestly, like not fucking once ever have I like predetermined an idea for a song and then like executed it exactly how I thought about
no,
it. Never.
not exactly.
Never.
No,
Yeah,
no,
never, bro.
never
It's
exactly.
always just like in the moment. I'm just like, huh, that harp from M83's track is cool. Let me just. It's like it's always just in the moment, and then you just try a thing.
yes,
You hear a sample, like, what if I just tried, like, you just or whatever, like, it's always just
yeah,
on the fly. Like you never think about
yeah.
it too much.
Like I said with the ski mask idea, like
Yeah,
I was just listening to it on the walk to work, and
yeah,
I didn't stop and make the melody or whatever inspired me. Like just one thing inspired me from a song, and through that 10-minute walk, it was just in my head, and I could not get it out. And I was like, I have to recreate this
yeah, yeah.
in some form. And I went in and I did it, and I don't remember what song it was, but
Sure.
it did not work out the way I wanted it to.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it ends up coming out the way the song wanted to. The way the song wants to progress. Truly, like often the song just takes over. You comply. Like the song's going this way, and you're naturally you do what you know.
Yeah.
And like it's almost like the song's like, well, you've done this before. I mean, the songs have gone this way before, and you know what to do. Like the song prompts you almost.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like it's just weird.
Mm-hmm.
So many times, yeah. No, nothing ever comes out the way I want it ever.
Yeah.
No, and that's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. No, I think it's ultimately a good thing, because it results in moments that you didn't realize you were able to do. Almost.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is always really cool to like notice happen in real time. It's like it's quite like jarring and like surprising and exciting all at once.
Yes,
it's cool. It's cool.
And nothing ever feels forced that way.
Exactly, man. It just feels like just honest, just natural expression. Like it's really cool.
Yeah. I remember a while back you asking me for like ambient advice.
Yeah.
When we met up not that long ago.
Yeah. Because I want to. Yeah, like there are a lot of artists that kind of just toy with just synths and just like soundscapes and just kind of make them feel devastating. And like hearing it in that moment is just like the world is being swallowed. And I just want to be able to have like, I want my next release to sort of have that kind of like evocative like power. And I feel like I got to kind of master sort of textures and sound design more.
Yeah, what was there ever an interest in vale-smith not just being a I don't know how you would describe your music. I guess it's IDM in many ways.
If you want,
sure.
trap
inspired.
If you want it,
is that would you ever consider vale-smith being a lot more than that, or would you?
Definitely, yeah. I want to like it. Just it's always just like every release is first and foremost just like a feeling that I've had, and then I just create it in the one way I know how to, which is just through beats. And like as I've been a music fan for years, and as I've grown up, I've always just had like a really weird affinity for just like certain types of sounds and melodies and beats and drums, and just like those artists I was mentioning earlier, like just the way it's just something about it is just, it's just me. It's just like that's just how I always instinctually think to express it, is doing it like that, But I'm always open to just like pushing myself into new territory. I want to be able to say like, oh, I'm completely capable of making a song like this or like that.
Yes.
I want to be able to say that for whatever style, like. So at a certain point, I don't want to have any box unticked, basically. So And yeah, ambient is a genre that I also really love, and there are times to where it's like all I want to listen to because I just find it really powerful.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
I mean,
would love to be
have
able
you,
to sort of do that with my own music as well.
have you ever considered, maybe not under vale-smith, but have you ever just considered making an ambient record, like out just completely? Because I mean, I do what I want. You know,
Yeah,
for me,
yeah,
there's no, like, if I am in the mood to make an ambient song, you know, I'll make it. And
yeah,
if I'm in the mood to make ambient techno, I mean, I think I've shown that in the just the eclectic mix of stuff that
exactly,
I've made over the past 2 years. Have you ever thought about just saying
yeah.
fuck it and making an ambient album
Definitely, man.
outright?
Definitely, bro. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got songs on my hard drive right now that show me attempting it and shit.
Okay.
But yeah, they just ain't good. So I just
No, you wouldn't
yeah.
consider them
Nah, no, I
to
wouldn't.
be.
Yeah, no, I
You wouldn't. You
it's
would.
still a work in progress for sure. But I would love to
Yeah.
just. I always want to just like if I ever like have some kind of desire or drive to just try a thing out. I'll go for it and see how it turns out. And I'll just that's how I've always been. I just kind of teach myself, you know. And I'm always open to hearing
Yeah.
like advice and tips from people like you or anyone else or producers, Shy, like everyone that's kind of excelled in these fields in some way before. But yeah, it's every attempt that I've ever done is just me kind of just like it's me putting my foot in the water, just like giving it a shot and just letting myself kind of learn. Like you said, it's a DIY effort, so you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so many people think that as much as I say you can go into GarageBand on your phone, you can go into pretty much any door, and as long as you have an idea of what you're wanting to make, you'll come out with something where you've learned from, because even if it goes completely to shit, that frustration will lead you on to the next thing and go, right, I know that didn't work, and you know, how can I make it work on the next fresh project?
Yeah, no, every trash beat I've ever made is essential, I think.
Yeah, and
you learn something with all of them. So.
Exactly, yeah. Like, even though I say that, I truly don't think it's easy. It's really not easy.
No.
And a lot of people have this idea, especially with like ambient, that they think it's quite an easy thing to make.
Oh no, bro.
My God, it's probably the hardest I've ever like gone into. You know, especially now that I'm full in beat mode, where pretty much every song has beats in it now. You know, every song has at least a kick drum. Ambient music is still very alien to me, and is very, very difficult to nail down.
It's more versatile than I think people give it credit for.
Crazy, yeah. Like, as soon people don't realize until they sit at a fucking at keyboard, and then they're like, right, where do I start? You know, that's really called progression, but I can't keep that going for too long. It's also, there's a song on my first EP of the 2 EPs compilation called Impeach, which is
it's like an ambient 13-minute one, right? It's the third one.
Yes, which is an ambient techno track, incredibly inspired by this amazing artist called Sandwar District, who they were making ambient the early 20s. And I just discovered them through searching for electronic projects in, you know, for the 2010s, like roundup. You know, what were the best albums of the 2010s or whatever, and that was literally is driven by this one melody that, again, I don't know where it came from. I don't remember doing it. I don't know how to do it again. And it's a very, very simple melody, but it is just so catchy, and I love it. And I think other people love it too. Shy was definitely intoxicated by it. I think I showed it on its very early stages to Liam, and he just loved it. He thought it was intoxicating, and it's weird. It's got this. It's literally just a tiny, tiny, very simple melody, but I keep it throughout the 13-minute song. because I just don't think I ever get bored of it, and I don't think people will get bored of it
when
too.
when you land on that kind of melody, you just keep
Yeah,
going. It's like it just carries
and
the track in such a
yeah,
memorable
and
way.
so I think like ambient can be that, where
Yeah.
it's like very simple, but it there's just something about the way the sounds come together, or the way the melody loops so perfectly and beautifully that it almost sounds fresh every time you hear it.
Yeah.
But it also is so much more complicated than that on many levels. Like, you can't have simple melodies popping in your head all the time, or coming out on the keyboard all the time. Like, it's never going to be that easy.
For sure,
man.
Yeah, like
with every track.
Anytime I'll try to kind of, when I go into making a track, I'll try to recreate sort of like, I guess like what I had pulled off with another song, or let me do another song like that. That would turn out really good. You can't, like, it would just turn out.
No, it doesn't work.
Never.
It really does not work. And even if you nail it, like, it's like, oh, it sounds too similar.
Yeah.
Like, I've used the same idea again, and that's boring.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's been a few times to where, like, if I'm in like a real rut and I've not been making anything good for a while, I'm like, oh, let me try and like play it simple, make a track like sound like vestibule, like have like some cool pianos in there, like have like something grand and shit, and like, like just something with like a real cinematic sort of like, and I'll try and sort of like pull that off in like a new way, but it's just not even worth trying. Like, it's never gonna work. Just always approach it with something completely, like, don't even think about it. Just go and just let it happen.
Yeah, like, yeah. You always have to go into something with just you have to throw yourself into it.
Yeah.
You start with something you would have never thought of starting with.
Yes.
Before.
Yes, dude, 100%.
Like,
that's
exactly
how, like, bro. That's how Typhoon was made, bro. Literally.
Yeah.
My friend was like, "Yo, just YouTube search cat and juice and just sample whatever you find." And I found a video of like this fucking Brazilian cat, and that's the sample of the song. And
that is fantastic. Yeah.
It's a video called like Tindaro the cat or something. I don't know. And then like the vocal bits in the song is like the cat owner just like saying little things. That was what, and it was literally just like, I need something, like, you have to just make it out of something you'd never even think to do. Like, yeah.
And that's where, like, that truly is where your favorite songs end up coming from, and that's how you build a project. Even though, like, when you are on a roll, you can often, it just almost is like a complete just second instinct. Like, it just, like, when you're on a roll making track, each track you're going into it with a fresh idea, but you're not even thinking. It just, like, you get a sample up and you go. Like, you're not even thinking like, oh man, this is so different. It's just like, you make it and it comes out. When it's out, you're like, thank God it's got a similar sound palette to the other stuff that I'm making right now. Because I was barely even thinking on many of these ideas. That's such a wonderful feeling
when it all kind of like comes together into like a project.
You don't even,
oh my God,
man, that the EP was so fulfilling. That was when it was like, fuck, Russolo Collective exists. Like,
oh my God, man.
There's a group of tracks here that like feel so how I feel. And
dude, like, it's so annoying, like, when you're in the process of making like a record of some kind, and like you have all the tracks, but like you have no clue how the hell this is going to be sequenced. Nothing feels like it's you haven't found what the order is yet. You can't see that vision, and then you just like fuck around and just like rearrange it in a certain way, and then you see it in like a different way you never even considered before, and it's, oh shit, that kind of flows. And like, that's how kind of the Exordium EP came about, because I couldn't find a spot for any of those tracks that fit well on Origami. I was like, oh, these 4 tracks are they're so good, but like, fuck, I just couldn't find it anywhere on the record that like fit, and to where it wouldn't drag it out for too long, or like it would be like a weird change of pace that just didn't really make sense. So I was like, and then I just put them aside. And I was, holy shit, they flow great on their own, just as a separate thing. I was like, it was a really like amazing moment. So it's so fulfilling when that happens.
Yeah, that's also a really, really good sign that your album is beautifully put together. You know, that you've got these 4 tracks that don't work in the record, but work so excellently, amazingly together.
Sure,
That
yeah, I suppose so.
that's how tight your project is. It's so many just so much thought gone into it that it's
right.
you can't even use these really amazing tracks
Yeah. I
in
wanted
the
because I
record.
always wanted to, because I knew those songs were like, they rivaled some of the better tracks on Origami. They were really
Mm-hmm.
good. Like, I wanted to put them on there because like, these are like album worthy songs. But when I
Yeah,
just looked at it from like, just took myself out of my head and just saw the ground, I was like, you know what, this makes sense. It makes sense for these to
yeah,
be on their own thing.
yeah,
It just fits
yeah.
better.
You
So
got to make those sacrifices.
yeah,
Sometimes.
for sure.
Yeah. I think with Russolo Collective, it's never truly. I've never really cut too much fat.
Yeah.
The as I said before, the mixtape, the 2 EPs that I just dropped, they're all intermediate ideas that I needed to release.
Yeah.
But the first EP, I can't remember. The thing is, when I was making stuff for that EP, I didn't know how many tracks it was going to be, but I knew how I wanted them to all feel. And so if I started making a track and I didn't like where it was going, it wouldn't be finished to me. It would never be considered finished. Because I just had such an idea of how Russolo Collective was going to do things in the main sort of releases for what it is, and so I never had. I don't think I had a finished track that didn't make it. I would just not consider it finished because I don't know. It's a difficult thing to describe. I just didn't touch it again. Like I didn't go back to it and think, oh, this would be better here, or no. I would just ignore it. It was like I don't know. It was a weird time. A weird time. I don't remember. Do you ever like remember the time you were making something? Because the first EP, those songs now, I don't even remember making them ever. Where did they? I don't even remember them. Where did they come from at this point?
I guess I wouldn't say for all of my stuff, but yeah, for some songs for sure, it's just kind of like a weird little blur. And I remember there are a few like that I have pretty vivid like kind of recollections of, like Vestibule particularly. Like I remember this was at work. It was like a snow day at work, and like they said like because I worked at a college at the time as like as a teaching assistant, and it was a snow day, so no students were in. So I called my boss like, hey, so since it's a snow day, do I have to come in? There's no classes happening. Like, do I have to come in? And they said like, it's up to you. Honestly, you can, if you want, maybe help out teachers, like organize their upcoming lessons. But honestly, if you want, stay at home. And I was like, I could get these racks, right? I could get these racks. But honestly, I'm feeling the spark today. So I was like, I stayed off and I made Vestibule, and it was tight. And
man, okay, that sorry to cut you off,
but
sorry. you made a really interesting point there. Like sometimes you are just feeling it.
Yeah.
Like that is so relatable.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
So the more relatable thing would be some days you're just not feeling it. So you don't even touch a keyboard. You don't go anywhere near your laptop or your door or anything. But when you're feeling it, it's just
it's beautiful.
You're just like, you're so inspired. You don't even know what you're inspired by. You don't even know what you're inspired to make. You're just like, it's a
you just wake up and you know it.
It's that type of day, man. Like I envy so many people who are like creatives, but they're surrounded by other creatives who are constantly pushing them, and I mean that's kind of the idea of Speak and Spell, for us to all be released. It's not just a label, but it's a place for us to connect.
It's really nice having that creative energy, like
Shy just released her best project yet, and it's, to me, it was just such a beautiful record, and a lot of people are rating it on OIM, which is great, but I can't. It's kind of like I don't rate any of our releases because I always feel like it's like biased.
Yeah.
But Shy releasing Obscura is like that's her best shit. Like now I have to make my best shit to follow up that, because the label now is on its game. You know, it's on its level. This is a level we're all at, and so we have to step up.
For sure,
that is so important.
It really does
to
help
me.
to have that. I got my friend Joe is really good with that. Like he's like, or co-linear, who's featured on Origami. He did the ending of that song, and he's like the number one most like all that fucking matters is working on music person I've ever met. Like he is so driven all the time.
Yeah.
Like he'll be like he'll be sometimes like quite frustrated. And like because he just can't get the mix right, and I'll be talking to him, and he'll just be very like agitated. I can tell it's just because he really wants to get shit like perfect. And having that energy there is really helpful sometimes for me. It's just like it really pushes me to want to like do it as perfectly as I can do it. So it's helpful to have that beside you for sure. Like I envy that too.
That's great. Like because I don't think I have that many creative people around me too often. Sure. Even when I was doing my art degree, I didn't really feel like the people surrounding me were pushing me. There were definitely a handful of people who would come in daily and we'd chat about our work, which definitely helped. But I never felt like I truly had backing force, you know. And I think it always got me down. But I mean, it doesn't anymore. But sure, like, I definitely do envy that, like, you know, being surrounded.
I feel that.
Being
I'm
near.
Definitely grateful to have like someone there that
just
does
keep you going.
And I'm grateful as well for speaking as well. It's the same thing.
I truly hope that we are in early stages, and still, you know, it's been around it will be around for a year soon. But of course, whenever For Sale went up, Shy's For Sale, it will be a year, and that's still, you know, it's still like early stages. Still, you know, we're still not fully on our footing, but I think we are like on our path now.
Exactly.
This year,
it's exciting,
especially.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think. Should we wrap it up?
Sure thing. Yeah, that's a nice ending statement right there. That's a cozy ending statement. Yeah.
Go and stream Shy's new album.
Please,
and then,
yes, please go and stream Obscura. It's wonderful.
Yeah, please, and then stream everything else we've released this year, because
stream all of it. Stream Josh's new EPs, everyone.
Please. I would love it.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to get an album out finally.
Right, man.
A Russolo collective album.
We all are, bro. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be beautiful.
I'm so hyped.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a great moment.
It's a good year. It's gonna be a good year. Yeah. New album on the
good
way
year
as well, of course.
Yeah.
Fucking fun, man. Fucking really fun. So yeah. Let's
right.
Let's go. All right. Thanks everyone for watching, for listening. Appreciate it. This was a really refreshing chat. God damn. Especially because my mind has just been like album for like 2 fucking weeks.
Yeah.
Ever since the top 50 albums video dropped, I've just been like, album mode. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I do think it's important to step back and talk.
Definitely.
You know, for a while. Making's great, but talking is just as important. You know.
100%. Bro.
But yeah.
Lovely.
Okay.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.